first and foremost, the inspiration from the Dolemite films. I mean, we all looked at those films and we laughed about how it was, you know, so charming in that there were a lot of flaws. The boom was in the shot at times, and characters, you know, flopped around without really having a connection to, you know, a swipe or a hit. And so that was just hilarious. But also the costumes that were created by Rudy Ray Moore for Dolemite were so interesting. He really was like a costume designer, because his this character that he created had such a look about him. And so I really went into a deep dive in looking at so many elements and angles of his clothing in order to really recreate exactly what he was thinking when he created them originally. And that was fun. I think I could have just made things up and just made something really cool, but I didn't want to. I really wanted to recreate some of those amazing ideas that Rudy Ray Moore had done for Dolemite. I feel that when I first started working with Eddie Murphy, he was one of my first real big movie stars that I had to dress, and I was always very conscious and very focused on what kinds of things I could do to make him more comfortable as an actor, and how I could create a design for him that would really be the character that he was coming out to portray, because he plays these characters so well, and I had so much respect for him as a performer. I wanted him to really like my designs, like better than anything he'd ever worn before on camera. And so I worked really hard at that. This is like my sixth, I believe, film with him, and I still have that sentiment. I respect him so much, and I admire his ability to create these larger-than-life characters and all of the nuances that he brings to them. I try to match it with bringing nuances to the clothing and the costumes. And for this was 16 years that he was interested in playing this character. And I took that very seriously. I knew that what I presented to him, and whether it was in illustration form or in actual costume, that he could evaluate whether it was something that Rudy Ray Moore would have worn or had worn. And that was my first thought in dressing him. Well, for Black Panther, the authenticity of tribal costume and how it was infused in a superhero model was the biggest challenge, because I wanted to have recognizable elements based on the ancient tribes of Africa, and I wanted people to see that they were in the same context that they were worn in Africa. For example, like kente is worn for ceremonial purposes. So I relegated it to those times when it was a ceremony for T'Challa. The Himba women and their color red and their red clay and the hides that they use and stretch to create garments was a very big inspiration for me with the Dora Milaje. So the hardest part was doing that, making it a real costume that we could believe lives in a real place, even though we all know Wakanda is made up. It needed to feel real, and it needed to feel like it honored tradition, but was also very forward and very modern.